Good evening, all. I welcome you to the 33rd session of the CENTA webinar series for teachers. The overnight shift of the school infrastructure and the learning environment to the remote space or digital space has not been easy for any of the stakeholders, be it the teachers, be it students, be it parents. Uh, Also, building a positive student-teacher relationship has always been an essential and often, one could say, a challenging part of the teaching learning process. Over the course of the next hour or so, we'll examine what has been the impact of this shift on these relationships, how are teachers tackling this currently, and we'll also look at how classrooms around the world are bonding through a screen. To help us with this, we have a very young and dynamic facilitator for us, this evening, Miss Sapna Fatima Saleem. Good evening, Sapna. Wonderful to have you with us.
Thank you, Karthik.
So, just a quick introduction. Sapna consults with governments as well as private school networks in training school teams in the areas of leadership development, teaching and learning practices, community engagement, and teacher capacity building. She consults independently with government school networks in Kerala as well. As a part of her work with India School Leadership Institute, also called ISLI, she has built curriculum and training programs for thousands of government and private schools in North and South India. More recently, Sapna has also developed training materials for Dignitas Kenya, an organization that's working to develop school systems in Africa. Sapna is one of the top 5 selected speakers by TED for their TED Masterclass program for educators. She began her career in education as a teacher with Teach for India in Hyderabad. And in her 7 years in the education space, Sapna has written on education and her work has been published on various platforms, including Teacher Plus, Logical Indian, and she's also had the opportunity to present on platforms such as the Delhi Commission for Protection of Child Rights. Welcome, Sapna. All of us, are looking forward to a brilliant session. And just before you begin, a couple of things on the logistics. One is Sapna will be, presenting till 5:40, 5:45, and after that we'll open the session to questions. So in case any of you have questions, please type those in the comment section or the live chat section, as you would see. You're seeing this video on your YouTube, account right now. So just below it, you'll see a live chat section. You can type in your comments, your questions there as comments, and we'll take questions at the end of in the last 10 to 15 minutes. We'll take questions. So that's one thing. And second thing is the feedback form. Like we did last time, the feedback form is going to be shared both in this in the live chat section as well as on my center. The same place that you used to register, that banner will link to the feedback form from 5:45 onwards. So please go there. Click on the banner. You'll be able to access the feedback form. It's going to be open till 9 p.m. tonight. There's ample time, so please take your time, fill up the feedback form, and I would humbly request you to not email us for your acknowledgement records because it becomes very difficult to process. We get tons of emails every day, so as much as possible, please use the feedback link or the link that we share during the session to provide your feedback, and the acknowledgement record will be emailed to you before noon tomorrow. So yeah, that's it much from my side. Sapna, over to you.
Thank you, Karthik. I want to thank CENTA as well for giving me this opportunity to share whatever learning that I have on this topic. Karthik, I'm just going to share my screen. If you could tell me if it's all is okay.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
No, not yet. Yeah, yeah, we can see the screen now, Sapna.
Yeah. Is that okay, Karthik?
Yes, yes, we are able to see the screen. Yes.
Okay, great. So again, thank you, CENTA, for giving me this opportunity. I want to also begin this session by thanking all the teachers across India who participated and gave me their inputs for me to understand what are the challenges they're facing, what are the different things that they're trying out, and what's working for them and what's not. So we're going to go into this session by thanking those teachers, and thank you all of you for joining in. Like Karthik said, I'd like to answer the questions towards the end of the session. So, just as all of you, since I've also been a teacher, I understand what are the challenges teachers go through. So, if you're in primary school, different challenges are such as the learning gaps in literacy, numeracy. You see children having behavior issues. You're trying to, see how you can deal with that specific child who's really not making your life easy. And when you go on to secondary or higher grades, what you see is that you as a teacher are struggling with getting students to perform better in olympiads, different entrance exams, all while helping them navigate through adolescence. So being a teacher is never an easy thing, nothing new there. But enter the pandemic. And in 2020, suddenly all of the teachers have from becoming real people in classrooms to becoming just people in screens in the homes of these children. So you've suddenly morphed into a digital character for students. With this, new set of problems arrive for us as teachers. So if you've faced behavior issues between students in classrooms then, now that's not the same case. Now, your challenges are anywhere from students having difficulty with connectivity, students not having a device, or many teachers tell me that they see children eating in their classrooms, or there are younger children who are dozing off with their cameras on, or parents who are just behaving inappropriately when the class is going on. So the challenges have just become different. It's not become any easier. So what is it that's changed for the students? When we're looking at their lives, I want you to think back about your own lives, your own days in schools, right? What is it that we loved about school? We loved that we had friends to go meet every day. We loved that we had lunch breaks where we could team in and share our food. We had jokes in the classroom that we were cracking, different college, school fests that we were attending and organizing. All of these amazing things is what school was for all of us. And suddenly, the pandemic has changed all of that, and our school is now a screen, which basically means all our favorite things as student has been taken away from us. And what's left with us is a screen, which is what we use to do probably the least favorite of things, which might be taking down notes, listening to a lecture, or writing an exam. So, understanding our challenge as teachers, I think it's also important to reflect back and see what are students going through. What is it that they are facing with this pandemic? And I'm sure you as teachers have already seen this yourself. Getting these students to really come and engage in classrooms, but also participate and reach out to you with whatever issues they have. So school has in itself become different for students. This is when I felt the need of looking at student-teacher relationships in more depth. Earlier, we had times in our classrooms where we built relationship, which was organic. Sometimes it might be through a caring smile that you give a child. It might be through you just standing over their shoulder when they're doing a question, or it might be when you've gone out for a field trip and you've got to understand your students a little better. So there were different areas and arenas when you were in a physical school that you were able to build this relationship with your students. But unfortunately, all of that has been taken away. And now you have a certain set of things that you need to do and certain ways that you do. So we're going to look at how we can build relationship and why it also is important for us to do that, right? We have a lot of multiple number of researches that tell us that student learning outcomes are directly linked with the kind of student teacher relationship that we have. So there is absolutely no doubt that if you as a teacher want to perform better, you want your students to perform better, what you need to put in effort in building this relationship. And from the side of the students, if you're looking at it, this is about their social emotional well-being. This is about them feeling part of a community. we have to put in that effort to imitate as much as we can of a physical school environment that we can give into this digital space. What are the things that we can really do to help children feel nurtured, loved, cared, and part of a community? So we're going to look at a set of teacher mindset that really matter if you want to build this relationship. The first one, just as I said, learning and relationship in their, how proportional they are to each other, right? So there's just enough research that supports this, that if you want to see better learning, you must build better relationships. So for you as a teacher, it is absolutely important that if you put in more effort in building relationships, you will see as much result in the kind of learning outcomes that you see in your children. So this is not just for the students' well-being, but it's also to make your life easy as a teacher, because you have an aim that you're trying to achieve, which is better learning outcomes. And if you want to achieve it, you must work towards building better relationships. So that's the first one. Now, number two, building relationships online takes planning. Now, you might ask, isn't building relationships more organic, right? You don't really plan how you talk to a person. You don't plan how you make friends. That's true, but that's in case of adults who are trying to build a friendship or a relationship. Here, we're not talking about that. The kind of relationship we're really looking at is how a teacher and student has a relationship of trust. And when a student really understands that the teacher cares for the student and has their interest as the foremost thing in terms of getting them to perform better, in terms of getting them to be better in their emotional well-being. So in such a case, even though the relationship building might look organic to the child, it has to be planned. It has to have you as a teacher sitting down, jotting down what is it that you're going to do next, and what is it that's going to help you improve the relationship that you have. Who are these children that you need to work closer to be closer to? And this is even more important today when your school is your laptop or when your school is your mobile phone. Because, like I said earlier, all of those tiny little spaces which were tools that helped you build relationships, such as school fests or just a casual chit chat in class or before class started or after school started. All of that has been taken away. That's where organically relationships built when you were in school, but now that's not the case. So now let's look at relationship more of a planning that you need to be doing along with your lesson planning that you're doing. Thirdly, the mindset that I want you to have, how I want you to read this is not just technology is a teacher's friend, but what I want you to read it as is be open to learning. Every single day in our classroom, we teach something new to our students and we expect them to learn something new. So now it's time for us as teachers to take up that role and be a learner and not be afraid of technology. Technology is here to stay, and there is no other way of doing this without befriending technology. So we cannot ignore the fact that the learning space has changed forever. Even if tomorrow you step back into your physical classroom, technology is going to be part of that. You've already started using Google Forms and other kind of technology to help you do your assessments, mark them better, and all of those aspects that's helping you do things easier and faster. So technology is here to stay. So if you are going to try and make a better space for your students, build a better environment for your students, it has to be with you accepting that you need these three mindsets that you will hold close, and only then will the strategies that we are going to talk about is going to be of any use. So let's get down to business. Like any improvement program, the first thing that you need to do is evaluate. You want to first understand where you stand. What is the situation in your online class right now, even if it is online or otherwise? How well are your students learning and what's really happening? So, do they really show up for class on time all the time? Are they interacting with the material that you provide? Are they really using it, or is it the parents that are using it and helping them do their work most of the work instead of the children? Are they respectful and interested during lessons? Now, the issue of respect has come up quite a lot across the country, and not just across the country, but across the globe as well. We hear a lot of teachers saying that they find disrespectful behavior from especially adolescent children, right? So that is a challenge, and that's not a pleasant thing to face. So that's a reality. So how is it in your class right now? Are you facing such an issue? That is something that you'd need to evaluate. Are they communicating with you regularly? Which means, other than the class time that you're having, is there communication happening between you? Do they reach out to you if they have a question? Do they reach out to you if they have a problem? Are you seeing the same kind of interaction that you saw when you were in a physical school? And finally, are they also meeting their expected outcomes? Is the learning being affected because you've gone to an online school? So these are questions that you would want to evaluate. Sit down, think for yourself, and think for your classroom. Only you can do this for yourself, right? Nobody can be a better judge than you for your classroom. Sit down and think about this. And I want to bring your notice back to the word interested in the third question that I posed here. I have a few teachers who've asked me, genuinely asked me, who really work hard that, my role as a teacher is to express and get them to learn the content. There is a set of lesson plans that I have, and I can execute it so and so way. Why do I have to work on entertaining or in getting the students interested in that? Shouldn't they be learning it? That's a very common question. But I think the answer to that lies in understanding where the students are in terms of why they're in your classroom, right? You and I, we're here at the webinar because we chose to. You're attending this webinar because you hope to get something useful that will help you develop professionally and make your life easier as a teacher and more efficient as well. You have a reason for it, and you know what you're going to achieve through it. But when you're looking at our students, especially pre-K to 12, they really don't know why they're learning what they're learning. Even if we tell them the whys of certain topics, the overall picture of why do they need algebra? What is algebra going to do for them in their life? What is just learning about the civil disobedience movement going to help them in any way? So they're there not by choice, really. It's because they're part of a system. So we have to understand that as teachers, our role is to help them want to learn it by making our classes more interesting. So this is an important aspect for us to look at, and I'll come to how that is interrelated with the kind of relationship we have with our students as well. So we're going to look in a few strategies for this, and as we go by each of them, I want you to use the comment section to tell us which is the particular strategy that you want to try in your classroom and you're confident that you could try it out, and hopefully later on, once you've tried it, you can come back and tell us as well in the window as to how it worked out for you. So when we're looking at building relationships, let's think about it from the perspective of the child or the student. The first thing is that if you want to have a good relationship with your student, your student must know to show them how well they're doing. So all of these strategies that how do you show your students that we care? Secondly, we must engage our learner. And this I will connect back to the need of making learning interesting for your students. When you put that effort to engage your learner, your students see the kind of effort that you put in to get them to achieve their goals, achieve the outcomes that they need to be achieving. So engaging your learners is a way of telling them that you care, and that is going to help you build better relationships. Number three, online classroom routine. Now, all of us, when we're in a physical school, we used to some sort of familiarity and comfort. We have a comfortable space around us where you know where to go sit down, which is your space in the classroom, which teacher comes after which teacher, what is the kind of interaction you will have with the teacher. There's a lot of familiarity and a lot of routine in classrooms. But today, with online class, all of that has been taken away. There is less personal space. There is less, routines and culture setting that's happening in a classroom. Often, it is a screen and a teacher, providing a lecture. So we need to look at what are the few online classroom routines that we can set. Finally, of course, the most important part is also about roping in the parent. We cannot achieve anything that we're trying to do without having the support of the parents that we're working with. So, how are we going to show that we care? We're going to quickly look into two simple strategies, and I'm going to use put these first because these are strategies that might get considered as trivial. It might be considered as too simple and too unimportant by many because they are too easy to do, but as also it has nothing really to do with your academics, so it might get skipped. But let me tell you that these two simple things that you do will go a very long way if it is about building relationships with your students. Who are you, really? Let's start from the beginning. If you want to build relationship with somebody, you have to essentially know who this person is. You need to know what are their likes, what are their dislikes, what do they value, and what are they really like. So some of us are right now, unfortunately, teaching students we have never even seen before. It might be because you're teaching in a new school now, or you have a new set of students in class. Various reasons you don't even know who you're teaching, and the same for the students. They don't know the teacher, nor do they know their classmates, and that's very unfortunate because that hampers the kind of space that these students are in. So the first thing that you need to do is ensure that you build that relationship by introducing yourself uh, and expecting the same from the students. A simple thing that you can do is send a video biography. Take out your phone, record a simple 2 minute, 3 minute video saying who really are you, what are your likes, what are you good at, what are you not good at. Get them to understand the person behind that screen. They need to know that there is a real person who is talking to them through that screen, right? And there is research that tells us that a well developed video introduction really helps establish credibility of this instructor from the first moment the class begins, which means your students at least need to have some face time of understanding who are you and what you like and what you don't like. And the same about classmates. So if you're quickly getting your students to really do this as well, they can send their own videos telling their classmates who they are, what they do, what do they like. That's going to help you get your class to build a culture of getting to know each other. And even if they're far away from each other in their respective homes, they get to know who their classmates are. So video biography is an excellent way and a very efficient, and it doesn't really take any time of yours or of the students to do this, but it goes a very long way. The other thing is definitely given a phone call to your students. If you've already not spoken to your students at least once since school has shut, I think you should pick up your phone and just give them a call. Just say a hi, understand how they are doing, what is it that's troubling them in terms of class, and what is going on well for them. It doesn't take much, really. Spend 2 minutes on a phone call with one student. Set a target. Maybe this month you're going to complete speaking to these many students. Every day I'm going to spend 5 minutes on a phone call. So through that, you're also getting to show that you care. And there is research telling us that simply showing interest in the life of a student is an extremely powerful strategy that will help you build that relationship better. So now, just introducing each other, you've set a good start to your class. Now, you may be somebody who already know your children or students, and you've taught them for years. But again, there has been some sort of physical distance between the two. So I might recommend that you could still drop in a video saying what's happening and what are you up to, what did you do this weekend, introducing more of a personal side for you. Because to be honest, classrooms, just disappearing physically has also meant that any place is your classroom now. You can be anywhere and you can teach, and you can use any moment as a teachable moment. So introducing what you're doing, what is life like, or any certain way that you can get students to know you better, definitely use that. The second thing to really show them that you care is to celebrate, right? The other, something that students really feel joyful about being in school is being able to celebrate with the social circle that they have, which is basically their friends and their teacher. Now, all of that taken away, it's not a very fun time for them to be at home. So see how we can use different occasions to celebrate together. You simply noting down birthdays of your students on your calendar and keeping a reminder, sending in a birthday wish to a child, a birthday phone call, or even using Zoom while you're teaching to wish that child. It takes, it goes a very long way for the child to understand that this teacher really acknowledges my presence. She or he sees that I exist and they care about me. So sending in a simple birthday wish can go a very long way. Similarly, I know teachers who share festivals with their students. They send a family picture that they've taken on a festival, send it across their students, and they ask the same for the students to do. I know a teacher who sends randomly lunch pictures to the students. And some might think that this is odd that you're sending lunch pictures to your students. But if you think about it, when you were back in a physical school, you saw each other's lunch, you knew what each other was eating, the children were sharing their lunch and having, they know what's happening in terms of, what's the lunchbox scene and all of that. So it's up to you the kind of boundaries that you want to set, but it's a simple thing that you can do, which will again show them that there is a person, on the other side of the screen, and you're not just a digitized voice. So use opportunities that you can celebrate together, be it even achievements that students have, how certain students have done for a certain test, or there is any extracurricular that they are participating in. So these are two simple ways to show that you care. Now, classroom culture and routine. So I have a friend, an amazing teacher who had great relationship built for him in his classroom. When I talked to him about how life has changed since going digital, he said his class really failed in terms of how they were behaving with each other. And he was surprised that students were not really seeming the same as they were before, when they were in a physical space. And he told me the reason he understood was that what he did was, even though he spent so much time in his physical classroom to set a good classroom culture and routine, he forgot all of that, and he thought that having that strong bond would have helped him in his digital class. Without, and he jumped right into biology and teaching his class. He did not take any effort into looking at what does he need to do now in a digital space. So even if you have classroom routines and culture and a relationship set with your students, when you've moved to a digital space, things will somewhat look different. Some strategies might not work. Some things will fall apart. So in a digital space, there are certain things that you can do to make sure you also help students build this relationship. Because ultimately, it's that space, that environment that they know. There is familiarity, there is a comfort in that kind of routine that they go through every day that will help them navigate through, their school life. So the first thing in this that we're looking at is about digital agreements. Now, most of you already would have agreements in your classroom, right? It will vary based on the kind of age group that you're dealing with. You might be, for primary students, it might just be, hands on your lap, or do not disturb your neighbor. It could be anything based on your age group. Similarly, in your digital space, based on your students' age group, set appropriate digital agreements. I'm sure you must have been surprised the first time that you did a Zoom call for your class when students were speaking out of turn. There were students who were just, unmuting themselves, and you could hear all the noise from the background, and whatever is happening in their house, you could hear that. Or you could see that they were just sitting, joining in very late. So these are, although you expect them to behave in certain way, you might not see it explicitly right away. So it is essential that you stop what you're doing and you ensure that your classrooms don't move forward unless you have digital agreements, because agreements really help everybody function better. It makes your space efficient. It allows every student to participate and everybody to get a chance to do what they want to do. So, ideally, agreements, as always, need to be set along with the students. You can call in a session where you're sitting together and thinking, what is it that you want to, see as specific expectations from your classroom. You can ask your students what is it that they want to do. And only when you think you really don't have the bandwidth, or if your students are too young, or you don't have the time, is that you provide them with a set of agreements. It could be anything from the kind of discipline you want to see in the logging time, or it could be about how they need to behave during the class, and what is the kind of procedure they would do if they want to speak. What would they raise their hand? Would they comment in the chat section, or would they just call out what they want to say? So it could be anything that you as a teacher want to start seeing. The most important thing about agreements, digital agreements, or any kind of agreements, is that you reiterate them. If you've simply set agreements and put it up on the wall in a physical classroom, or if you put it up on your laptop screen, it doesn't work, right? You need to reiterate them every class. So, for example, if you see a student slowly dozing off in class, you can call them out and say, Rohan, you're breaking our second agreement. You need to look at the screen when we are learning. Or if you see that, a child is sitting in a very noisy background, you can call out them and say, Shilpa, what about our third agreement? You have to find a quiet place to sit. So use your agreements on a regular basis, because otherwise they will not really function. So setting these agreements is also a way that you have a uniform culture in your class, and they feel part of a group. They feel, if you have a set of norms, your students automatically will feel like they belong to a community that follows certain expectations. So let's move on to our next strategy. If you were to ask me what my favorite strategy to build a good relationship and an environment of, just respect and care, and just finding that positive space in your classroom in a digital spaces, I would say it's a soft start. So what is a soft start? I want you to think about the classrooms you were teaching. When you're in your class, when you're stepping in, do you automatically start teaching, or do you take some time to settle in? You unpack, you erase the board, or you have a little word with a student sitting next to you. Or the students, they might be chit chatting with each other, they might be unpacking their bag, they might be taking the right kind of book in, there might be a small joke somebody's cracked there. Whatever it is, it's a lot more alive and it's a lot more human environment, really. But what happens now? You know, you're like a magician who just appears on their screen, and you start giving your lesson. Nobody would really, feel comfortable or relaxed in that kind of an environment. If your students are really just logging in, listening to a lecture, a magician who just appeared just like that and just logged off after class, it doesn't really create that environment that you're looking at. There's a lot of tension when you're in that kind of a space. So soft start is basically simply a gentle invitation to the classroom. How can you do this? Every class needs to start with a soft start, which means you have anywhere between 2 to 3 minutes, or a maximum of 5 minutes, where you start the class where everybody is together, but you've not really started your lecture yet. You've not started content yet. In that first few minutes, you can choose whatever you want to do. You all do the same thing, or you all do whatever you want to do. But it is important that everybody is in front of the screen, everybody is present, and they know that they have their community with them, right? So some of the things that you can do is you can choose to provide, let the students do what they want to do, which is there might be students who want to just sit and paint, or somebody who wants to read a book in that 3 minutes, somebody who wants to solve a puzzle at that time. So that 3 to 5 minutes is for them to do what they want in the presence of your in your classroom. So here, it can simply even mean your children are just sitting quietly meditating, which which probably is just being silent, right? So that space is how you can do a soft start for your class. A very fun thing to do a soft start would be to have breakout rooms. I'm going to go into the details of breakout rooms in the coming section, but simply put, breakout rooms is when you allow a group of students to come together. If you're doing a video call, you allow a few students to club in different rooms, and they can have their own private space to discuss what they want to discuss. So that 3 minutes or 4 minutes that you give them, they can be talking to their colleagues. Now, remember, your students have just not been left, apart from you, but they've been apart from their classmates. They really don't have that time that they're conversing with their friends. They're, there might be best friends who are still in touch through phone, but what about the other, 30 or 40 students in your class? You don't really have conversations with them at all. So breakout rooms is a space that you can give them about 3 to 5 minutes where they chat, and then you can come back together and then start. I've also given a couple of websites here, which is Khan Academy or Spockle. These are amazing tools that you can use for soft starts. Spockle has really fun quizzes and trivia about anything and everything under the sun. So you can, as a collective class, you can use Spockle and do a quiz together before you start your lesson. So similarly, Khan Academy has various quizzes that you can do for free, and it doesn't really take much time to solve the problems as well. So, soft start is simply getting them to ease in to your learning space. If you're afraid this is going to take time away from your learning time, get your students to log in earlier. Get your agreements to say that you will log in 5 minutes before class. So the 5 minutes that you've given them is for soft start. Make this a routine. This is where your students will really get to some extent, socialize with their peers. So I hope you try this out, and I'm sure this will really work like magic in your class, really, instead of you being just a magician who logs in and logs off with your content. So please do try soft starts. And we're going to move on to the next strategy, which is office hours. So I want you to think about a regular physical school, right? So in a regular school, when do students talk to you? They talk to you beyond when you're lecturing, right? When you're in class, even when you're giving a lecture, students have the opportunity to really, call you in, stop you from what you're doing, and ask to clarify a question. They also know where to find you during the school hours. They know that during second period, this teacher is going to be in the staff room because she has a free period. If I have some time, I can check in with her about this question. So similarly, they know that after school, this teacher might be there for a couple of minutes. I can go speak to her, whatever I want to talk. So basically, you are a lot more accessible for your students in physical space. How can you imitate this in a digital space where, like I said earlier, you just log in and log off? Students don't know that you are available for them. So set office hours. Let's say Monday and Thursday, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. is your office hour. So your students know that in this time, they can contact you. They can probably leave a message to you saying that, ma'am, this Monday I need 10 minutes of your time, and you can schedule your time based on that, so that all students do get a turn. You might notice that you might not have any students at all coming in for office hours, but that is absolutely okay, because your intention here is to ensure that you are accessible and students feel that you are approachable even in an online space. They know that you are available as a mentor and as someone they can confide in, and someone who will provide them time when they need it. So it's okay if you don't get any calls or anybody telling you that they want to come and speak to you. that's fine. That's up to them. But I think within some time, when you do a different lot of other strategies that will help you build the relationship with your students, you will see more and more students coming in and occupying your space, occupying your office hours. They will come to you, either be it for clarifying their doubts or to speak to you one on one with whatever that they have, or they are facing, or they want to consult you on. So with time, when you see more and more students doing that and your office time being occupied, you'll realize that that's a good sign for you to see that you're doing something right. And students do have a good relationship with you, and they want to speak with you, and they're willing to approach you. So see if you can open up office hours and see how many months, even if it takes months, that students are really approaching you. So that's a great way to really do that. So these are the three specific things that you can do to set routine, right? Let's look at how we're going to engage your learner now. As and when I say these strategies, I'd like you to just comment again. I'm going to repeat that. Comment what will work for you. What is that you want to try? See if office hours works for you. You want to try it. Let us know. And similarly, is soft start something that you want to try? It's a little ambitious, but see if you want to try that out. Initially, it's going to be a little challenging to get everybody in order, but trust me, with routine, students will get used to it, and you will be able to navigate through it seamlessly. And that's how it's any that any process or any strategy you start off with is going to be challenging in the beginning. All right. So now let's go on to the third way of really building relationship, which is by engaging the learner itself. Your student needs to see that you as a teacher is putting in effort to show that you want to engage them, you care about their learning. So first thing that you can do, if you've already not heard the word breakout rooms, I urge you to go out and try it in the next class that you have. Breakout room is an amazing tool. Like I said earlier, it allows you to put your students in different groups. And the good thing is, you as a teacher can pop into any group that you want. And you can set the time that students get to break out into the group. So if you're using Zoom, and I believe they're also developing this in Google Meet, if you're having your live lessons, put students in a certain group and maybe change it every 2 weeks, because that is the time that students now get to discuss with each other. So your learning content can be discussed between among students by using these breakout rooms. So you can give them group discussion, you can get them to discuss debates, and even work time. Very often students are uncomfortable solving problems on their own, which is why the we do time where we support the students to do what they're doing is often monitored in a real classroom. But in a digital space, since you don't know what they're doing, you can't see how they're feeling about what you've just taught. Putting them in a group with their peers, it'll help them ask for help, and it'll help them do what they're doing better as well. So you can use it for that. Jigsaw method is an excellent way of engaging your learners, where it is absolutely interactive, and students have a lot of fun doing this. I'm going to ask you to go back and check on Google what jigsaw method is, because it's quite elaborate. And if you've signed up for this webinar on CENTA's website, Karthik will hopefully send you a mail with these resources, including jigsaw method as well. So teaming your students up is going to make your classes much more interactive and engaging for your students. You want to try that out with the live classes that you're doing. If there is any other way that you think you can get students to work together, feel free to do that. Feel free to find those ways, because this is what will build relationship in your school, in your classroom, where students know each other, they're willing to speak to each other, and they feel part of a group. So the next thing that we're going to do is look at asynchronous learning. So if you've attended the previous webinars at CENTA, you would already know what synchronous and asynchronous learning really means. Synchronous learning is when you're all together learning in the same time, in the same space. Asynchronous is when you give in content for students to look at, in their own time, and they come back with what they've learned. So just ensuring that you having asynchronous learning is showing the students that you care to give them work when they cannot access the internet, or they cannot access a device, they can still learn. So that's something that you can definitely try, and I'm sure you're already trying that. Another important thing is that you give very high quality feedback. Feedback, without doubt, is one of the top influences for student achievement. And your feedback must not look like a green tick and a red cross. It must look more like this, where it's a conversation that you're having. Your students need to know what have they done well, what do they need to do better, and how can they get there. So even though John Hattie's research tells us that feedback is one of the best influences for student achievement, what it misses out is covered in another research, which tells that if you give them feedback on their process, which means you're giving them quality feedback on what they're doing right, what do they need to do better, and how can they get there. That's when you will also see students believing that their teacher cares about them, and it'll allow you to build better relationships. Finally, we're looking at how do you rope in the most important stakeholder other than the student itself. If you've already not spoken to your parents, you must do that now. You must have introduced yourself and each other, because you are definitely partners in this relationship. If you're not able to communicate with parents, and if they are not able to reach out to you, then there is a break in the kind of relationship that you are trying to build with the student, right? So call in your parents, have introductions done, even if you know them already. Still, make sure that at least every 3 months, every parent gets a call from you. Call them just to give positive feedback about their child. You can surprise them really by saying what did their child do well on a particular day. And it might confuse them because normally calls go in for complaints, but just by simply calling in to say something good about their child makes them realize that this teacher, one, cares about their child, but two, more importantly, is observing their child. So that's where you get to build relationship with the parents that you're working with. Parent-teacher conferences cannot be avoided. No matter what, you have to update your parents with the kind of where academically your students stand, and that's where you get them to work with you. Field trips. This is normally a space where teachers and students really get to interact and mingle with each other and have a lot of fun. Teachers, yes, they do have a little less fun during field trips because they're busy doing head counts and a million times seeing if all students are still in the area. But this is an opportunity for you to only relax, enjoy some time with your students. When the whole world went into lockdown, a lot of places opened up their spaces for virtual field trips. These are just some of the resources like Discovery Education that you can use, Google Arts and Culture, and you can, if the world is not enough, you can definitely take your students to Mars or outer space. There's a lot of resources, again, which I will share through Karthik, where you can go on a field trip with your students, and you can call in your parents. That's where you're all interacting a lot more informally. So I hope that you can use virtual field trips as a way of really interacting with students and parents casually, and this is also how you can teach them based on the kind of subject that you teach. You can look for spaces and areas that is related to what you're doing. So these are 10 strategies that we've really looked at. But what I want to say is that no matter anything that you do, it could be any of these 10 strategies that you try out, or it could be anything that you do on your own. But the most important thing for you is to realize the need for that relationship. If you understand, and I'm sure you do, which is why you're all here watching this webinar, is that you see building that relationship as a very important thing between you and your student, and you keep these 4 key areas in your mind always when you're planning whatever it is, that you want to show your students that you care to engage your learner. You set a certain kind of routine and culture in your class, and you always hold your parents very close when you're doing this. And I'm sure you know that what you're doing when you're doing is not just teachers, students, English and math and EVS and social or science, but what you're doing really is being that mentor, being that role model a student can look up to. You're being that person student can reach out to, whom they trust other than their parents itself when they have an issue. And we're all going through a difficult time right now, including especially the students when they don't have their social circle. If you take that step forward, which is a little difficult at times, but if you take that step forward, you can build a lot more of a nurturing space for your students. You can build an environment of trust, love, and care, which ultimately will also help you see better student outcomes in your classrooms. I hope you'll try these out and do let us know what's worked for you and what hasn't, and we can definitely learn from each other. Thank you for listening to this. Karthik, over to you.
Thank you, Sapna. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for a fantastic session. And I always say this, but this is the 33rd session in this series, and we've had some amazing sessions over the last 5 6 months, ever since the lockdown began. But I haven't really seen a session in which teachers have participated so actively, and they've just said that, okay, this is an active takeaway, and this is a concrete takeaway. I'm going to go and use this in my classroom from tomorrow, and all simple takeaways, all concrete, and all really really effective. Thanks a lot. There are lots of questions, and we have 8 minutes, but maybe if you're fine with it, we'll also just stretch, go a little bit over 6, 5, 6, 10, and try to answer some of those questions. Just before that, teachers, the feedback link is there on my center, same place that you used to register for the session. You will be able to locate the feedback form there. We've also shared the link to the feedback form in the chat section here thrice, and we'll do it a couple of more times by the time we close the session. So please fill that in. So now let's get into the questions. So I saw a couple. One was a question by Miss. Actually, a lot of them are like uh, you know congratulatory comments, and comments about how they love the session. So I'm just trying to pull out the questions. So there was one question about students with low self-esteem, and how they are not actively participating in classrooms. Especially they didn't used to participate in classrooms when normal classes were going on, and even lesser now. It's now that we've moved into a remote setting. So how do we make them more active participants in a classroom? So that was one question. Maybe we could start with that. I think Sapna is facing some connectivity issues. Her screen is frozen. Sapna, can you hear us? Apologies. I'll just try and get Sapna back into the session. I'll just request you to bear with us for a couple of minutes. Hello. Hi, Sapna. I suppose there were
Hi.
some
Yes.
connectivity issues,
Sorry.
but did you manage to hear the question?
No, I didn't. Could you
Okay,
repeat that,
sure.
please?
Sure. So we had a question on helping children with slightly lower self-esteem, because the question was they didn't really participate when the normal classes were going on, and it's
Hmm.
even lesser now. It's in a remote setting. How do we encourage
Hmm.
them, and how do we get them to become more active participants in a remote classroom?
Okay, great question. I think this is as teachers we often see this a common trait, and you see the lot of shy students, and some might even be very brilliant, and they're just very conscious of how others would perceive them, and they don't want to participate. So I think here one thing that you can definitely do is go back and look at the jigsaw method. Which Karthik will be sending to you, and in this method of teaching, you are actively giving every student a role. So this doesn't make that shy child feel like they're being picked out, because often when we try and bring out the student to speak in front of them, they feel even more shy, and they want to pull back. So by doing this, when you're setting specific roles for every single child in your class, you're automatically just giving them a responsibility as well, where they don't feel like they've been under the spotlight. And while at the same time, this is a learning, and this is a way of learning what they're doing in a regular class. So go back and look at jigsaw method, see what is the role that you can place for this student, and definitely come back to us with any questions if you have. Try it out. I'm sure it will work for you.
Sure. And Anuradha ma'am has a question. She says, my question is that for class 9 and 10, how do we involve them in class? They just maintain silence, whatever one does. The only time I get a reaction from these classes is during a PowerPoint, similar to the first
Mhm.
question.
Okay. So thank you for the question, Anuradha ma'am. I think one thing that you can look at is, have you been trying to use the chat section in your present in your video call, and see how much you can bring in interaction there. Again, here it might be because either because adolescents don't want to show that they really care about what's happening in the classroom. That's one thing. That's a reason that students who are of that age really don't participate. But I think by asking specific questions that might be interesting for them to respond to, I think putting that up and getting them to involve themselves in the chat section is a good way to start, right? Yeah, so you don't necessarily need a PowerPoint for that, but when you're specifically asking interesting questions, which might even be trivia, it might be about the regular news that's happening around the world, where you're getting their opinion in, because at that age what they'd rather do is speak up about their opinion. So give them opportunity to do that, which, and you can definitely integrate that with the subject that you're teaching. If you're teaching social science or history or politics, you can sort of integrate that with the politics that's happening today, and ask a question, and that's where they will want to start interacting. And once you've got that culture of speaking up and sharing their thoughts, then it slowly becomes a classroom culture that everybody shares. So I think you might find that useful. I hope it does.
Sure. The first question on children with slightly lower self-esteem, that was asked by Archana Nautiyal ma'am. Archana ma'am is saying, Karthik, you never take my name, so that's done, ma'am. So, so So the next question is Ranjana ma'am's question, and Ranjana ma'am is asking, please suggest something to get homework done from students due to the pandemic situation.
Mhm.
Students give different excuses, and we don't have any option other than
Mhm.
trusting them.
Yeah. So here, the fourth area that we discussed in the strategy that we looked at, which is roping in the parents, is that's where this comes as a very important aspect, right? Like I said, they are an important lever in the relationship that you have with your students. Once the parents trust you, once they are on your side, there is no other way for the student, really. When the student knows that you and the parent is one team, they will have to show up, and they will have to perform what they're doing. And it shouldn't be an intimidating kind of a relationship that you and your parents show towards the you and the parents show towards the student, but it's more of a more of showing that they expect it from you, and you are responsible enough, you are old enough to do what you are expected to do. So getting parents involved, keeping them in the loop, be it through your WhatsApp groups, be it through a phone call or a video call, see what works best for you, and see what is the some students might need a lot more push than others. So see what works best for specific children that in your classroom.
There were a couple of questions, for students in primary classes, and Swapna ma'am has asked one of them, and she's saying it's more challenging to engage students who are from grades 1 to 4. how do we make the classes more interesting for them?
So I'd suggest this is where especially in grade 1 to 4, students are a little more, or what do you say, interested in sharing about their life as well. So something that I've seen teachers do is integrating what they're teaching with the students' daily life, right? So if you're teaching them concepts related to festivals or events, get them to participate by sharing what's happening at their household or what is happening. If you're talking about mathematics, you get them to think about scenarios where they needed to use math in their daily life, at home. So get them to share what's happening in their daily life, and I think that's quite interesting for students to really participate, because they always want to show what's happening in their life. And it's a happy thing to really do, to talk to your friends about it. So give them an opportunity to share with their friends, must through an activity in your classroom.
Uh, Muni ma'am has a question and she's saying, can the grouping be mentioned after the class is over? Uh, okay, we'll probably need some context here. Uh, we'll get back on that. Uh, Meanwhile, Simple Ma'am has a question and she's saying, students who are not attending the classes online, how can we help? People are facing network issues, students are facing network issues. How do we help
Um,
them?
yeah, so this is unfortunately a very real issue, especially in our country where network and internet is still a luxury for a lot of people. So one thing that I've seen is that's where asynchronous learning comes into play, where you can also use physical materials, where there are different organizations. One such example is Shikshart, where they have provided and they've created these activity books and worksheets for students of each age group as well as subject wise. They've created these activities that students can do at home. So when you see that your students have no option and they are missing out on learning completely because they don't have internet connection, I think you can get them to reach out to these sources, either by sending in a way that they can take printouts, or if you can physically get those posted to their homes, I think that might be useful. And again, I think that's a very important way of showing that you as a teacher care, that if your student is unable to access learning, you as a teacher is taking an extra mile to get them to these resources. And you can see if that works out for you.
Sure. Uh, Prem Kumar sir has a question and he says that his students always switch off the video when he asks them any questions, and so that and they also may not be observed by their parents when they're doing that. So how do we deal with this?
Yeah. So this is not something that you can change overnight. Just by setting a digital agreement that all videos need to be on, you're not going to get the students to do that, and that will have to come slowly with time when you're working towards building better relationship through other strategies, be it by spending some time calling them on the phone, just understanding how they are doing, what are they doing, how's life like for them. So try and build relationships through other aspects and then come to digital agreements later on. So when you want to see students reciprocating, what you are expecting them to do, or you want them to meet your expectation, it'll happen only through you first taking some effort to meet them and take that step forward, get them sort of comfortable with you and see that you care and you want them to be part of the entire class. And that's when slowly it's going to be challenging, especially if these are higher grade students. It's going to be challenging, but slowly you will get there. And what I want to reiterate is, however difficult all of these strategies might or might not be for your class, it is still worth it, because in the end your learning outcomes will be affected. You will have in the long run better classroom management through building better relationships. It's not going to be easy, but it will be worth it.
Sure. Vasant sir has a question. It's an interesting one. How do we improve student handwriting in a virtual classroom? Google Form has its own limitations.
Yes, this is very real for me as well, because just the other day I saw my nephew writing a test, and And I was very surprised and shocked that he'd forgotten how to write really, and this is just a 6-year-old, so he's forgotten how to write and where to put the date, or to even keep his letters within the lines, and it really upset me. And that's when I was thinking that maybe even if as a teacher, even if I'm giving them Google Forms and other ways of assessment, let me make sure that I also have assignments where they're writing and they're sending a picture of the same to me. So get your parents on board, get them to see where their child stands now, get them to see that their child's handwriting is not really doing its best, and get them to help you by sharing these pictures of them. So take it, even if it's one, and I think you can do this. I hope that you wouldn't do this by giving them an imposition or getting them to copyright something, but instead get them to go into creative writing, where they're also expressing themselves, and they're journaling how their day goes. So they're sharing, and they're also building relationship through that. And I think that's something where they're not so focused on the handwriting, but they know that they have to make it legible and neat, but at the same time they're conveying something more than just copywriting from a textbook.
Sure. And we have time for one last question. Janani ma'am is saying in her school she has students with learning disabilities and autism. How can she make them an active participant in an online classroom?
I have to be honest here. I'm not an expert in, teaching students with, differently able students. But I think here again, if you're able to get more support from parents, here you might want to build more relationship with parents than the effort that you're putting with students, because now the parents are, your eyes and your ears and your limbs really, to even if you have to get the students to you to hold the student's hand to help them write and learn, you have to get the parents on board. And so don't limit yourself with to the couple of techniques that I gave you in terms of parent engagement, engaging the parents, but look for ways that you can talk to them, or just help them with resources that you see, or simple activities. There might be, if you look online, you'll find a lot of resources to help these students with specific motor skills and other, even if it's physical or otherwise activities that will help them develop themselves. So what you would want to do is support the parent more than a child here, because there is very a lot of limitation in what you can do directly for the child. So get your parents to work for you.
Sure. We're completely out of time, but there's one last question maybe which we could take, and that's a question uh, by Nisha ma'am. And question is, can you please tell which is better, a video explanation of math or an explanation in live class?
I think this is pretty much dependent on the content that you're teaching, even in math, particularly because every child in your class has a different, grasping power, as we call it, right? Everybody has their own pace at which they learn. So when you're doing a live video session, most often, uh, probably half the class might not get it, and they might just not speak up because they don't want to. So what I'd suggest is, one, definitely do a live class, but supplementing that, maybe a couple of questions, if you can work it out and you can record a video of it and send it to your students so that they can see it over and over as to what you did, what's the procedure that you did, where did you write the numbers and why did you write the numbers. If you're explaining it to them in the video, that'll be very useful for the students. So you might have to supplement a live class with a video for mathematics especially.
Sure. I think that's. I think we'll have to call it a day. There was one question by Vandana ma'am, and she was asking, do we have breakout rooms in Microsoft Teams? Maybe I think I could answer that. I'm not sure if Microsoft Teams has breakout rooms. Zoom does, but I read that there is a workaround for that in Microsoft Teams, which you could use to get the same feel of a breakout room. I'd be happy to share that resource, ma'am, along with the other resources that Sapna wants us to go through after the session. So tomorrow, when you receive your acknowledgement records, you'll also in the same email receive links to a bunch of resources. Some of which Sapna mentioned during the session, and you could go through that. Lots of questions we could answer, there were lots of questions we could answer that, but we'll also share Sapna's email address, and we'll also request you to post these set questions on the discussion forum in my center. And we will take a few questions there, and we'll also request Sapna to engage with some of the teachers on that, on the forum. Having said that, thank you once again, Sapna. A brilliant session. And I'm sure that all of us would love to for you to come back and have another session with us. So really, really looking forward to that. Um, so just just a couple of questions on the feedback link. Yes, we have shared the link again. We've shared the link 4 5 times in the chat section. We're going to do that again. We have just done that. We've the link is there. Please, it's also available on my center. Please fill that in by 9 p.m. today, and the acknowledgement and the mail with the resource links will be sent to you via by noon tomorrow. So please fill that in, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you once again, Sapna. Thanks a lot, and
Thank you.
thank you. And I hope all of you have a wonderful, wonderful evening ahead. Join us on Thursday, same time. We'll have the 34th session of our series, and it's going to be on similar lines. Again, we are going to talk about the pandemic and how it has affected teaching in affordable private schools. What are the different methods affordable private schools have adopted in order to overcome the pandemic? So the registrations are open on my center in the webinar section. You're also going to be receiving an email on this tomorrow. So watch out your email inbox for a registration announcement on the same. And I look forward to seeing all of you on Thursday, 5 o'clock. And this video is going to be here, so watch the, if in case you missed parts of it, you can come back and watch the video at your own pace. Like the video, subscribe to our channel if you've already not done that, and share the video widely in your networks with your teachers, with teachers in your networks and colleagues who you think might like this session. Thank you once again. Thanks a lot.